Hello, everyone. Today, I am going to finally do something on this channel that I have been meaning to do for years at this point, but have just, for some reason, forgot about it and never got around to it. I am a huge fan of the Irish musician goddess that is Enya. Her music, I have reviewed all of her albums on this channel already. I will link the playlist of all those reviews in the description. And so I, already talked about all of her released music that was like, what you can buy in stores still, the much more kind of commercial releases. But as any artist will have, especially one who's had a career that spanned over 3 decades now, there is, of course, a lot of music that slips under the radar that is unreleased or considered a B side, which is, when they used to have vinyls and they would have an A side and a B side when singles would be released. It's a very old fashioned music term. And so a lot of the tracks I'm going to be talking about today are going to be B sides of Enya's that were only released limitedly physically as, these singles. And then, of course, now you can find them on the internet, but you can't, purchase them digitally or physically anymore, unless maybe if you look on eBay, I bet you can probably find some. But yeah, some of them are not so great in terms of audio quality, and some of them are pretty old. Some of these earlier tracks are from the mid to early 80s when Enya had just left Clannad, which was her family music group. And she was finally just like getting her footing as a solo artist and experimenting on her own. And then the more recent stuff only goes back to up to about like 2005, really, because then we started getting pretty much everything just sold to us as a commercial product from Enya. There weren't any more B-sides. That's just a thing of the past. You get bonus tracks now on albums, so you got bonus tracks. And Dark Sky Island, for example, the 3 B-sides were released with the album. So there's no Dark Sky Island B-sides, which is really sad because I was hoping that some songs would appear on the internet in subsequent years after that album came out 4 years ago. But no, we haven't gotten anything. It's just those 14 tracks. But with all that being said, there's quite a few Enya B-sides, and also there are non-album singles that I have not talked about. And that's one of the reasons why I finally got my butt down to sit in this chair and film this video, because it just dawned on me. I've had this channel for quite a few years now doing music reviews, and Enya is one of my favorite, if not my favorite music artist and inspiration, and just all around favorite person, I feel like. And in terms of inspiration artistically, I was completely floored that there are certain Enya songs that I would have not been able to have talked about if I just talked about her official albums, because there are quite a few singles that did not fall on a particular album. They were put on compilations, for example, or they were just released as standalone singles, or they were for movie soundtracks. So I've got some big tracks, big commercial tracks to talk about as well that I'm really excited to talk about, because I haven't talked about Enya on this channel in quite some time. And I just am really, really hoping that we get a new album from her in 2020. The latter half, particularly around November, I am really, really feeling good about. I'm probably jinxing it by saying, so assuredly that it's going to be this year. Because every year I've said that, it never happened. And then 2015 was the one year I had no inkling or an expectation whatsoever that she was going to come out of nowhere. And she did. So I honestly feel like I really should stop expecting anything this fall, because that's just pushing it away further. We might not get new Enya music this year, but we will hopefully within the next few, if not this year. But she's definitely working on new music. So let's go right back to the beginning. I'm going to go chronologically through all of these B-sides and unreleased tracks. And, some of them I don't have as much to say. A lot of them are instrumentals, so, they are what they are. But they're all pretty lovely, as Enya tracks will be. And so we're going to go all the way back to, like I said, in the mid to almost early 80s when she had left Clannad, and was starting to want to pursue music as a solo artist. One of the very first registered instrumentals that is out there is a track called The Solar Wind. Now, it's actually a title in Gaelic, which I have no idea how to pronounce, but that's the English translation. And it's an instrumental track on the piano, but it's kind of a bit more of a synthesizer-heavy keyboard moment. And it's a really interesting experimentation, form of experimentation for Enya. You know, a lot of these early tracks from the mid '80s are very much sort of like Enya prototypes. They're definitely demo quality songs, and you know, the Solar Wind is lovely. I mean, it's a great short little 2-minute instrumental. It's actually quite lively. I have no clue what she means by the solar wind. Is that a scientific term? It sounds like it might be. You know, the earlier tracks, you know, I do definitely think of Ireland, and I think of, you know, the sort of brisk kind of cool air that you probably experience quite frequently, but also this rush of, you know, adrenaline upon idea of going on an adventure. And so the solar wind definitely feels like it's diving into that sort of territory. Now, one of the first times that Enya actually decided to compose music was actually for a film from the mid '80s called The Frog Prince. It's an English French film, but it was a collaboration with a bunch of different artists. So Enya actually only really worked on two. Well, she helped compose the music for a bunch of the tracks, but she only actually vocally performed on two of them. That is The Frog Prince and a track called Dreams. And she also played, you know, instruments on those tracks as well. You know, it's really kind of strange to listen to Enya sort of take on the style she does in those earlier tracks because, you know, it's a very much more jazz, it's a much more contemporary style. You know, she tends to lean more into the classical realm of music. And so her, you know, with a bit more of a traditional kind of structure and beat around a song that's kind of pop is quite strange to listen to when you're so unused to that. But you know, I mean, for what these songs are, you know, they're kind of simple. They're not really my cup of tea. I mean, they're great, easy listening tracks. I mean, they'd probably fit perfectly in this sort of rom com movie. I have no idea what this movie's really about. To be completely honest, as much as Enya's name is attached to these tracks, I don't really feel Enya really in them. You know, like I said, you know, this was her kind of testing her musical abilities with composing and just using vocal on track and doing things for but it wasn't her vision whatsoever. So, you know, I mean, I'm sure, you know, with the lyrical content, she was playing off of her own emotions and putting that to diary, sort of, so to speak. So it is, you know, there's personal input to this song, but at the end of the day, it was for a movie. So I don't necessarily have too much more to say. But Dreams is a little bit more psychedelic in certain aspects. There's a bit more synth in Dreams. So it is a little bit more reminiscent of what Enya actually does with her subsequent music. You know, traditional, beautiful, clear, crisp vocals from her as always. Even if some of those early vocals may seem a little unpolished, just because, like I said, these are rough recordings. You know, it's almost kind of weird to imagine a 24-year-old Enya singing these songs. You know, her being so young and you know, wild-eyed by romance novels and things like that. I mean, you can tell that sensibility kind of really came into the songwriting on these tracks as they are extremely romantic. Okay, so you know, I'm not entirely sure what songs come after these songs. You know, it's the chronology. You know, we have the Celts BBC documentary, which was the real first Nikki and Roma collaboration project that Enya did. And it was also a self-titled, you know, the music for it was put under a self-titled album titled Enya, which was then later released as the Celts in 1992. And the only real B-side that we do have from this body of work is actually a song that was released in 2005 officially called A Spaghetti Western Theme from the Celts. And I remember when I was around the time Amarantine was coming out, I had no idea what the term spaghetti western meant. And I remember seeing this actually is a song I think you can get on Apple Music. It's like because it's from 2005, they actually officially released it along with the Amarantine single, along with one other B-side, which I'll get to when we get to that time period. But I remember being put off by how weird the song title was. I was like, spaghetti with Enya? What? But a spaghetti western style is a old west. It's a western film music trope. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know where that terminology comes from, but a spaghetti western, you know, is a film set, in the Wild West in the US. The film Once Upon a Time in the West would probably be a great classic example of a spaghetti Western. And, that sort of music that plays between two cowboys when they're sort of having a shootout. So anyway, this was sort of adapted to be played as instrumental for footage of Celtic warriors fighting, from what I understand. I've not actually seen the BBC, that 1987 BBC documentary for the Celts, but that's what I can deduce that was made for. And it is a quite interesting production. I think it was sort of revamped for that 2005 release. So they re-recorded it and everything. So the original version would have probably been a lot rougher, but there's a lot of vocals that I didn't even realize on this track were actually Enya herself. The humming that goes along with the melody line. There's vocals layered on top of each other in so many different octaves, and actually there's a really really high pitched, but I think it's her own high vocal note, one of the highest that she's ever reached. So that's quite remarkable on its own. And this track is reminiscent to, and I saw someone comment this under it, but it was also in my mind, the Italian composer Ennio Morricone, his film The Mission from 1986. There's a feel of that sort of epic type of soundtrack, movie music kind of embedded into this song. So I feel like there's a lot of inspiration there. And definitely a comparison that can be made. So the next B-side I'm going to talk about is actually one that was officially released in 1992 or 1991, maybe, I can't remember, with the single Book of Days. The song is called Morning Glory. And it is a lyricless, but, vocal and piano arrangement. And, Morning Glory is one of those unapologetically kind of hopeful and romantic melodies that just jumps right off the page. It's one of those songs I wish we had a better quality recording of, because you can definitely tell the recording is not quite up to par. And it's funny, sometimes the piano sounds a little bit like it's out of tune, like it's on a really old piano. But it's so simple and lackadaisical. It really, honestly, if you haven't heard it, the best way for me to describe it is it does describe that, particularly that spring morning, with the birds chirping and the sun kind of coming on your face for the first time. And there's this real feeling of elation and ecstasy and joy that just is so undeniable. And for someone who has not seen a lot of mornings recently, particularly this winter, because I am not a morning person, this song makes me wish that I could, and I'm going to make more of an effort this spring, to be up more for sunrises, because there is something just so soul enriching about experiencing that and hearing the birds and seeing the sun rays come over, onto you. It's just feeling that warmth, and that's what this song is. It's a joy, it's a triumph, and it's bird song. That's the best way for me to describe it. It should have been on one of her albums. I mean, it's one of those tracks that's definitely good enough to be on one of her earlier records. So we have some Gaelic songs from the earlier part of her career. One of them is called As Baile. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but it's actually her 1988 song Exile, sung in Gaelic. So there's not a whole lot more for me to say other than it's basically that song sung in Gaelic. There's some slight variances to some of the instrumentation, but it's still gorgeous. I'd argue it's almost more hauntingly beautiful when she sings it in Gaelic. So Asbail, I'm not sure how to pronounce. That's definitely something you got to check out, and don't think just because you've heard Exile you don't need to hear this version. There is another song called, oh boy, I mean, I'm just gonna leave it written down here because I have no idea how to pronounce this. So again, this song started to appear in the, like I said, early 90s, along with singles that were released off of Shepherd Moons. I think this was also on the Book of Days single, but it was also on the single for the song How Can I Keep From Singing, the old Shaker hymn that Enya, covers on Shepherd Moons. So it appeared in a couple places. I believe the rough translation is As I Leave My Home. It's a little bit, I'm not getting a direct good translation here, but that's what I'm kind of getting. The rough translation. So there's definitely a feeling of trepidation, kind of a hesitance to this track. It's very mournful. I mean, there's a very slow, deliberate delivery to this track. You can really feel this emotional weight kind of surrounding the aura of the moment in time that this character is singing this song or experiencing this emotion, or Enya is experiencing these emotions. The lyrics translated into English: morning and the day's beginning, and I leave my home, my heart is breaking, my youth is long past. Night and I am alone, endless deep black skies, remembering days that were. Without want and without gloom, I listen to the wind, great loneliness forever, endless. The end of the long journey. I am sad, sorrowful, and broken. After me, there will be no more. But children, it is our destiny. The day is long past when I left my home. There is no hope in my heart. There is only death. Wow, get a load of that. This, I think, will probably go down as her most gothic song. And I am, my heart just breaks, listening to these, like reading these lyrics and the melody that accompanies them. I mean, this is what ultimately Enya's music brings out of me the most, is this really sorrowful, yearning emotion, yearning for something long past, yearning for things that could never be, that once were, that you wish could come to be, and feeling out of place or feeling alone, feeling a sense of hopelessness. And most of the time, Enya turns the switch on that and brings a hopeful tone to the lyrics and also to the melody. But in this song, it almost just gets more and more dire and forlorn, as it ends with, "There is no hope in my heart. There is only death." I I feel as though this track definitely has similar elements to a song of someone who's about to go off to war, and is just really kind of succumbing and accepting the inevitable. And the way they transmute those emotions, I do feel like Enya might have been inspired by stories of that type, of stories of soldiers going off to battle. Um, there's something so classic about, her singing in Gaelic. It's right up the alley of all of these, you know, classic folk Gaelic hymns and songs, that she is in conversation with, that make it just it makes it almost beyond personal. And so you forget that it's just one woman who's writing these songs. However, Roma Ryan probably contributed with the lyrics, as she usually does. So maybe Roma's the one with the with more of the depression. Other songs like Exile that follow a similar, and Evening Falls, they follow a similar pattern. But there's like some element of the day will come when the sun will come again. Not so much with this track. And I do often wonder, if it's more Enya's side of things or Roma's side of things that is contributing to the heaviness of these lyrics, whereas Enya is just more focused on the melody and taking those emotional lyrics and putting the emotion behind them, which she sells beautifully. Once again, a feeling of about to embark on a great journey. That is a huge theme throughout all of Enya's music. So no surprise there that this song is encompassing vistas that have yet to be discovered. That's how it feels to me. And at the once reaching back into the pale blue horizon. So another B-side that came out around this time is also Eclipse, which is basically the song Deriad An Tuath reversed. So it's a really ethereal moment, and it's that song, but it's just completely reversed. It's a short, vocal moment, and highly recommend listening to it. Just thought I would give that one a shout out. Okay, so now we get to the Memory of Trees era. So one of my favorite B-sides from her, and a song that was not technically a part of the Memory of Trees, but it was released on the single On My Way Home, which was released a year later in 1996. It's called I May Not Awaken. This is another heavy one. I really get a strong sense. Well, let's just look at the lyrics here. When the warmth of the day becomes the night, who could sleep beneath a strange moonlight? No guiding star so far from home. Walked the way of promise to find but snow. Throughout the voice of the ring winds brings nothing more than low echoes so far from home. Even from a child, a wish is not enough. For me, the sky may fall. And even from a child, a dream is not enough. Could be, the sky may fall. Could be, the night ends all. No rains could weep as I have wept, to know a simple dream will not be kept. I am a child so far from home. One by one the sky falls. I may not awaken. Probably one of the most slow songs. The delivery is so slow, so measured, and that I think adds just every ounce of weight to every single lyric. And this is a song that it really does feel like it has a bit of a funeral progression chord structure. There's a bit of an organ kind of in the background, so the hymn quality comes through. And then there's this soaring moment in the bridge where things sound a little more optimistic in tone. I think there's a key change there. And it's swelling with all of her vocal harmonies so beautifully, kind of wrapping themselves around you. And so we get, and so often we do, these gorgeous, gorgeous, bittersweet bridges. Enya is the queen of bridges, because the bridges are when we get some of the most unique melody structures that really turn the notes as they travel through the melody lines so beautifully, and so melancholically and bittersweet. And then we calm back down to a very sort of, like I said, doleful, um, steady pace as we end on that very despondent note of I may not awaken. These are thoughts that I think anyone who has gone through depression can easily relate to. I don't know personally, what Enya has gone through in terms of dealing with mental health. Um, I mean, I can only imagine that the input that was brought in was also from her, not just from Roma. If Roma's the one who's writing every single lyric, I can't imagine that Enya would not sing a song like this unless it really had personal bearing for her. I really feel like this music like this is so important, especially in Enya's catalog, where, like I said, there isn't so much of a happy ending. There's, and it's so often with I think Enya's lyrics, it's so open ended. Um, there's good and bad in life, and a lot of the time her music tries to walk the line of playing both sides a little bit, and understanding the highs and the lows. And this is a song that's not really trying at all to look upwards. Even if it is, it's doing so in a way that is defeated. There's already this element of, I already know a wish is not enough. For me, the sky may fall. Accepting one's gloom, and realizing that at least for now, at this state, at this time, I am possibly going to succumb to these emotions. I think it's a really important sentiment to understand, from the day to day when we're going through these darker periods, to not fight so hard against it. And that's what this song is ultimately, I think, trying to get at. It's not, be all end all, I may not awaken. I mean, at least hopefully not. But it's more, for today, yes, today the sky may fall. The sky probably will fall. But that's okay because there's going to be a new day and then we'll have Morning Glory. I think Morning Glory would be a great song to put after this one in a playlist, just to give that positive edge. But this is definitely a song that is not afraid to let and accept gloom and despair for what it is. And it's part of the human condition. And the more you fight it, the more it'll actually hurt you in the long run. And so learning to process healthily these emotions and, understand and accept the feelings that you're going through, you can actually end up transmuting them into beautiful art like this song, if you healthily process them, because they'll be in your brain, but they won't be something you resent. They'll be more of like a stored memory, a stored feeling or emotion that you can call upon for other times where you're feeling similarly to help construct some form of art from or something, something to turn it into something better or meaningful. beyond just darkness and, despair and giving up. I mean, I have to be a bit nihilistic and just say I feel like there's so much of what I go through from the day to day that's just represented in these lyrics. And yeah, I'm not proud of it, but I'm also not ashamed of it at all either. Like, I'm just like, yeah, this is life. And I think if you shirk away from that, just doesn't make being happy any easier. I think that you have to really learn how to have good bad days, if that makes any sense. Not good bad days, but bad days, processing through those bad days in a way that is kind of realistic and just like understanding what's going on, like processing it rationally and just saying, yeah, today is a bad day. Now, bringing this to a more existential context, I can seriously see how there is elements of understanding of suicide, being from the mind of someone who's about to commit. And that's one of probably the darkest undertones that Enya has in any of her songs. So that's why songs like this, I will automatically gravitate towards. I know it's really sad, but the sadder and more tragic the sort of melody and the lyrics, the more I just feel so seen by it. And that's not necessarily to say that I have been actually suicidal, but I just so can understand that position. I so can understand it. It feels like a home I've lived in before. And so a lot of ways these verses and everything, it just feels so familiar in a haunting way. And I want to almost pay homage to it in a way instead of just shun it, because like I said, there's light that can be brought out from the darkness, and it's just important to process it. But yes, like I said, it's a tragic song, and I love it. I love it. Oh boy, yeah. No, I knew I was going to spend a while talking about this one. There's so much to unpack with it. Okay, moving on. The other Memory of Trees. Okay, so the Memory of Trees actually does have a bonus track called Oriel Window. I might have actually touched on that track in my Memory of Trees review. But if I haven't, a lot of people say that that's a song that's sort of a sister song to the Solar Wind. So maybe it was one that she had composed back in the 80s. It's a very simplistic piano piece. The music and it's more arpeggio kind of based, I guess. It's more kind of just like waves rocking back and forth. And it's kind of calming in that regard. I mean, all of her instrumentals are. I need to talk about Paint the Sky with Stars. So in 1997, Enya released her first compilation project. It was released as CD and cassette, and I actually owned that cassette growing up. Well, my parents did. And it was my first time getting exposed to Enya's music. And at the very young age of probably around 4 or 5, I was first hearing Orinoco Flow and Caribbean Blue. All of her hits were on that CD. It was 16 songs. It was a great playlist of her first 3 to 4 albums. And the best of, really it was. But there were 2 new tracks released with that project. Only If, the much more up-tempo big single that was released in 1997, and the mournful, contemplative, lullaby-like song, Paint the Sky with Stars. So first I'll talk about Only If. Only If is a plucky orchestral moment. I think Only If sort of sees Enya going more into the territory she'll do a lot more with in later records. Only If is like that transition phase from the Memory of Trees over to A Day Without Rain with songs like Wild Child, and Flora's Secret. It's going in the more orchestral direction and leaving a little bit more of the, world instrumentation behind, just a smidge. But Only If is just one of those rocking songs of hers, where, again, it's not so much to me about what she's saying, it's how she's delivering the song. Similar to Anywhere Is, there's a real feeling of rhythm and movement that she captures perfectly with her delivery. And the syncopation of her vocals. I mean, again, like as a child, I was more in awe of that than I was at all about the lyrics. And to be honest, at some point I was so young, I just wasn't really listening to music for lyrics at that point. It was all about melody and all about rhythm and all the sonics coming in together. There are some French lyrics towards the bridge of this track. She sings, "Ah, je voudrais voler comme un oiseau d'aillet." And loosely translated, "Ah, I would like to fly like a winged bird." And that's just during that very elated moment in the chorus, which in the bridge, which I think is a real standout moment for this track. Um, yeah, one of her poppier songs. Definitely, if people are more fan of her upbeat music, there's kind of an echoing feel to Orinoco Flow, and maybe it's the vowel sound of "only if you want to" Orinoco. There's like a similar sort of feeling going on there, and it just really does have this energy behind it. And again, I feel like with Anywhere Is and with other songs, there's just this real get up and go attitude. So opposite of, what I was just talking about with I May Not Awaken. The optimism and positivity is just oozing from the walls. And again, all about possibilities, all about the will that you have to create anything you want in this world. If you really want to, you can seize the day. Only if you want to will you fly away. Very important to remember that it's all about what you want to do, and what you are intrinsically motivated to push yourself for. I think that's an important thing for us to remember. We often think, oh my God, what do I need to do? But, as much as need is very important, because we do need to listen to things that we need to do that aren't always what we want to do, it's also important to flip the script and think, I know there's all these things I need to do, but what do I want to do? And sometimes I think it's really, really important. And in society, we're sort of conditioned not to look and think this way. Think about what your heart really wants and follow that. What does your gut instinct compass point you to? And how do you feel when you go in a certain direction? Because listening to yourself, listening to your inner will, but also having the will to say, I can do this. I am strong enough. I can do this. Like I said, unbridled optimism that on certain days is a little too much for me to take. And that's why I take all these songs with a pinch of salt. And I honestly am a little bit more in line with Enya's more, dour and depressing stuff. But, I love that she brings the flavors of life all together, the highs and the lows, and the really high highs and the really low lows, all of it together celebrated so beautifully. So Only If is a real highlight track. And it's one that I really wish you could purchase on Apple Music and iTunes and Spotify. I don't know why Only If is not available on any of those services. It pains me so much. Same with the other track that came out with this compilation. But before I talk about that, I just want to talk about Willows on the Water. Willows on the Water was a B-side released with Only If as a single in 1997. And Willows on the Water, imagine and close your eyes and imagine that title and then listen to the song. I mean, it's exactly what you would imagine, especially if you're familiar with Enya's music. Extremely summery and full of sunlight. A great instrumental. Not much more else I can say. Paint the Sky with Stars. Oh my goodness. So I do remember listening to this song and it lulling me to sleep when I was 4 to 5 to 6 years old in the car. This was sort of at the back end of this Paint the Sky with Stars giant collection of songs. And this one is a lot more hymnal, in that it is, a bit more slow and steady in measure and a bit more simplistic in its melody. You kind of can tell where the melody is going. And so it's a very, very relaxing track. But oh my goodness, I mean, the power I feel like this song has and its simplicity, is just unrivaled for me. It's a truly sacred moment for me, a truly sacred song. There aren't that many songs that do that for me, but you know how people have, the Bible and there's these songs and hymns that are so sacred, right? Well, this is a song that should be in there, even though it's not, it's a secular song. The synths just carry the melody line. There's really not much else going on, but then her just gorgeous vocals being laid over the track. And she really leans into the timbre of her voice. Suddenly. I really like hearing that richness in her tone in this track. Suddenly before my eyes, hues of indigo arise. With them how my spirit sighs, paint the sky with stars. That opening lyric, the line hues of indigo arise, I will always associate that with the New Age movement and with indigo children. For those who aren't aware, indigo children are supposedly, children born, in the last 50 years who have brought a lot more elevated frequency and light and awareness and intelligence to this planet. I've there was a time when I was a lot more about that sort of I don't know what to call it, but I'm a little more cynical than I once was when I was 18 years old, and it's actually quite sad. Um, but I rediscovered this song when I was like 19 years old, so it had been a good 15 years since I'd heard it as a baby and as a kid, and not as a baby. The song came out after I was a baby, but as a kid. And I felt so much like this was one of those songs that's just like for the indigo children in a way. And I felt like I believe Enya is an indigo child. I believe I was an indigo child. You're watching this video, you're probably an indigo child because you're an Enya fan. I always felt like this sort of celestial, esoteric, otherworldly kind of looking up at the stars and feeling lost and realizing you're not home on this planet. That only in dreams can we escape to a world that feels a little bit more like our own home that we once came from, maybe another planet, another galaxy, another universe. Getting super esoteric with it, and again, I wish I wasn't so cynical as I am now at 26, but I'm working with it. I'm working around my ideas of faith and stuff, and reconstructing everything. But that does not in any way understate the power that this song has. I truly do believe that this song is on another frequency, even though it is so simple. Only night will ever know why the heavens never show. All the dreams there are to know, paint the sky with stars. Who has placed the midnight sky so a spirit has to fly? As the heavens seem so far, now who will paint the midnight star? And, in the promotional work for this, she's seen holding a can of paint and a paintbrush. And, it's very childlike. And understandably, this song is definitely geared. I don't want to say it's geared towards children. It's not really the aim to be exclusively like that. But it is a song that young and old can find a sense of childlike wonder from, or at least a sense of, unbridled innocence and also escapism. I think that, the simplicity of the lyrics to be understood and interpreted by a child or a childlike sensibility is the key here. And at the end of the day, I feel as though that is sort of where we all come to when we're contemplating the deeper subjects of life. What really is, beyond our frame of existence that we see here? What does happen when we pass on? What is the night sky? Like all of these questions that have spanned eons and millennia in human understanding come together in such a wonderful, such a beautiful track that is at once a celebration of life and the mystery of it, and it's at once it is also very mournful and a lamentation. I won't deny that there's definitely a part of that definitely knows that this is a track that I would want sung at my own funeral. There's songs of Enya's I want played at my wedding, and there are songs of Enya's I want played at my funeral, and at my parents' funeral. Sad to say, but I've been thinking about that for quite some time, and that's what I mean by these songs are for those kind of moments. And yeah, it's a song I'd also like to sing myself. It's not very difficult to sing, because the range isn't quite there isn't a lot of range, but it doesn't need it. Like I said, I feel as though I close my eyes when I listen to this song and I see the night sky. I see all of I see pastel colors of blues and indigos and violets, and I see just all the emotion that sort of I feel is what we all are made of, and all of time and the beauty of life and the tragedy of life. That's what this song is. And I'm just so grateful I started listening to it as like one of my first listening experiences with Enya and with music when I was such a child, because I think it's so important children listen to this song. There's a lot of music that if I had a kid, oh boy, they would be hearing it a lot as a young child. So yes, Enya is the new age queen we all need and deserve on this track, and she is shepherding so much emotion on it that's just unparalleled. So yeah, for that song alone, I needed to film this video. Boy, I'm actually going a lot longer on this than I thought I would. Okay, so in interest of time, I am going to, say there's a couple other songs that were released. So there was this box set that came out in the late 90s where you had all of Enya's songs up to that point released on 3 separate discs. You had Oceans, which was the more sort of up-tempo pop songs, think Orinoco Flow, Caribbean Blue. And then you had Clouds, which were all the instrumentals. And then you had Stars, which were all the hymn kind of songs, the songs like Paint the Sky with Stars or Exile or, the Gaelic songs. And one of the songs that was included is called The Promise. I believe it was, I believe The Promise was included on one of these. I can't remember. It's so hard to, I can't remember what was attached to what single. Um, but The Promise is a gorgeous piano moment. It's actually one that I think to the untrained ear would sound very repetitive, but if you listen closely, every chord is different. Every, crescendo of chord is slightly played slightly differently. And the melody, just like I said, it reminds me a lot of the tide coming in and out and how it's like the same but different every time. So it's a meditative song, but it's very, very hopeful, very, very optimistic in tone. Midnight Blue is another instrumental. Just want to give a shout out. This track actually ended up becoming And Winter Came on that 2008 album. The original melody was originated from that song. So you can hear the prototype version. Okay, so let's talk about Wild Child's B-side. So Wild Child, the single from A Day Without Rain, had a B-side attached to it called Song of the Sandman, Lullaby. Oh my goodness. I mean, again, music I would play to my kids. This is a song, again, I've only heard it in the last few years. Like 2012-ish was probably when I first heard it. So I did not listen to this song when it came out when I was, probably like 8 years old. It's a pity. But Song of the Sandman will definitely have you feeling relaxed. There's such a calming presence to this track with all of the layered vocals and her just earnest, deep vocal kind of coming through. Can you hear the night's deep song? All the shadows say, telling you when you're to sleep, tears will fade away. Dream of morning's golden light when you and I will leave the night. It's a simple track, it tells it like it is. There's not much more I can say beyond please just make sure you give this a listen. All of these sort of more lullaby styled songs, there's some ways there's comparisons to Paint the Sky with Stars, though I think this song is even more simplistic and doesn't quite reach what I think Paint the Sky with Stars reaches. They're both songs that are about the wonderment of nighttime and what we dream about and how that parallels to what we live in our daily lives. And the world that exists in our minds and tapping into that. And that's just something very important that I think children in particular need to be reminded of a lot, but more importantly, adults too. Oh, right. So The Lord of the Rings. It's so crazy because, again, I haven't actually technically talked about this song on this channel. The Lord of the Rings is my favorite fantasy novel, and the Lord of the Rings films, Peter Jackson, are my favorite films ever made. So putting Enya together with those films was just a match made in heaven, obviously. And The Fellowship of the Ring had Enya contributing to the soundtrack. She provided vocals on a track that she and Roma wrote called Aniron, which is a love song played for that scene in Rivendell when Aragorn and Arwen are sharing an intimate moment. The lyrics are in Quenya, which is an Elvish language created by J.R.R. Tolkien. Oh, that language was made for Enya's vocals. I wish Enya would make a Tolkien album where she just sung in Quenya and Sindarin, which are the Elvish languages. I could hear her adaptations. I mean, she did do a song called Lothlorien on Shepherd Moons, which was inspired by Tolkien. She's always been a Tolkien fan. You can tell that this was just a dream come true for her. And it sounds so Enya. I mean, there's not much else I can say. May It Be, which was the song played at the closing credits, which was also nominated for Academy Award in 2002 for Best Original Song. It was also nominated for a Golden Globe Award and for a Grammy Award for Best Song Written for Visual Media. But unfortunately, it didn't win any of them. It's criminal that it didn't. I don't know who it lost out to that year, but Lord of the Rings ended up getting the Best Original Song with Annie Lennox in 2004 with Into the West. So, it is what it is. But May It Be, a lot of people think, Into the West is that, Lord of the Rings song, and nothing against Annie Lennox. I mean, she does an amazing job with that closing credits song. But May It Be is just extra powerful. Also because she sings in Elvish. Again, she sings in, I believe it's Quenya in that track. She sings in Quenya, The Mornier Utulier means darkness has come. And then Mornier Alantier means darkness has fallen. She sings that, at the, pre-chorus or the beginning part of the chorus. It's crazy. I mean, Enya performing at the Academy Awards. I can only imagine. I didn't watch that, that I don't think I watched that broadcast when I was a bit younger. And I don't know I was really paying attention to Lord of the Rings when Fellowship came out. It was more when Two Towers came out that I started paying attention to those films. But she was so nervous on stage. God bless her soul. I mean, it was completely, especially for an artist who does not sing live that often, just unfortunate. It was a performance that I think she did great with what she was given for. I mean, some people criticize that performance. She was very visibly nervous. It's just hard, I feel like they didn't quite stage her the way they could have. I still think she did a phenomenal job, and I will always love that track. And I mean, tying it to Lord of the Rings just makes it a bombshell for me. It always will be. And this song speaks about, a promise lives within you now. This is all of what Enya's music has always been speaking to me about, is this untapped potential that we all carry within us, like this blueprint of greatness and the magic we all have untapped within us to fulfill our destinies. And I think the fact that, all of these songs came out in the early years of my life make them extra special, because it really does feel like they were things that were placed, if you're considering it in my own chronology, which is a little selfish of me because, it's all different timelines for everyone else. But for me personally, the fact that all these songs came at the very early years of my life makes it feel extra special and weighted when I listen to these songs, because it kind of does feel like they were placed as like shepherds for me to like find my way. And now I look back to them and I'm like, gosh, have I done what I'm supposed to be doing? Like these songs have told me to all these years back and echoing in my distant past from childhood, where, the big scope of, life is considered and the journeys we take and kind of summarizing it all. I get very broad in thinking about life and stuff with these songs. It's one of the reasons why I love Enya, and it fits right into my train of thought, which is always where I'm going. But it obviously speaks to the journey that, Frodo and Sam go on in Fellowship of the Ring, and, the excitement of starting a new journey, but also the fact that, at the time in Lord of the Rings, there is light the light is fading, the Third Age Middle Earth is ending, the elves are leaving, and it seems that all is at the brink of war, at the end of that film and that story, at that part of the story. So it fits perfectly with, this sort of a hopeful caution that is coming forward, and this optimism of looking forward to this great journey, but not knowing what lies beyond. But understanding that whatever happens, you'll stay true to yourself. You will be, and you will shine, and you will conquer what you need to do. Okay, so the B-side for this single is called Isobella. In interest of brevity, all I will say about this track is it is sung in Gaelic, but then it's sung, Isobella in the chorus. I don't know a lot about this track, but it is gorgeously, hauntingly beautiful. The like I said, measured, steady tempo of this track, it's very slow. I feel like this song has a bit of a processional feel to it, with a bunch of voices singing in harmony, and I could easily sing it be a cappella, as there isn't, it almost feels a cappella. There isn't too much in the, background. There's just some synth string going in the background. You live from the beginning to the end, Isobella, a day that belongs to you, tranquil, a day that belongs to you, pure of heart, love now and forever. Your day has no sorrow, your day has no sadness, love now and forever. Who this Isobella is, I don't know, but it's being prayed to as like a godlike figure. I'm endlessly interested by this Isobella person. I know it's not specifically a person. I don't know if this is tied to Gaelic mythology, or if there's some sort of folk interpretation, or if Isobella is a person that she knew and that she is tributing to. Maybe, I don't know. It could be a family member. I don't know. Because it does have a bit of a feeling of maybe something that could be sung at a funeral. But it's a little hopeful, but you don't really know. There's an unease to this song. It's, like I said, it's treading that line between utter despair and kind of lamentation and hopeful optimism. And it's just so interesting because of it. But it's very esoteric. It's very otherworldly. And it fits so much in with like the elvish music that you see elves singing Lord of the Rings. So I think it's so fitting that it's attached as a B-side to May It Be. Okay, so we come now to 2005. So the only B-side I have not talked about, which is not technically a B-side, it's part like it's an unreleased bonus track that is on iTunes and Apple Music and stuff. It's called "The Comb of the Winds," and it is this blustery instrumental, spring breeze kind of rushing across your face, or being on the ocean and feeling the wind. That's what this song really is invoking and feeling. And not much more I can say. I mean, again, these instrumentals are gorgeous. This one's on the longer side, which, is quite, I think, refreshing. Some of them are so short. So great for meditation, just great for relaxation. And I do think it carries along this sort of sentiment of an earlier song of hers called Afer Ventus from Shepherd Moons. I don't know why, but I just feel like those songs are in conversation with each other, sort of speaking of wind and air and movement across the ocean, where that might take you. But it's very lackadaisical. It's very just go with it and just get swept up in it. It's elemental. That's a good way to describe it. It's the element of the wind or a breeze singing to you or making music for you. There's not really anything else to talk about. I mean, for And Winter Came, the only sort of B-side is that One Toy Soldier has a version sung in Italian. I didn't actually know this until I did research for this video, called Miraculum, which is very strange because that's not an Italian word, and I'm not entirely sure why that song's titled that way. But there is a version of it sung in Italian. But it's the same exact thing. Otherwise, it's And Winter Came. And like I said, Dark Sky Island, we just have those 3 bonus tracks, which I talk about. I have Dark Sky Island review. Like I said, I will link a playlist that has all of my Enya reviews of all 8 of her studio albums to date, linked in the description, so you can check that out. Any new Enya fans who have just stumbled upon this channel. And I'm so glad I finally got to express my thoughts on some of these really monumental tracks from my childhood, like Paint the Sky with Stars and May It Be, and other songs that I've discovered over the years, like May Not Awaken, that are just these hidden gems of profound emotion that I don't know. Some of the songs I understand why they're B-sides. Don't get me wrong. I understand why some of them are. And then others, I'm like, gosh, no, they should have been officially released. And so, Enya's music is just, the oeuvre of work is just a sight to behold for me. It's something that always blows me away, and always leaves me wanting more. So I am, again, like so eager to see where she goes with her next record. So thank you all so much for watching. Please in the comments, and fill in the details, because I mean, there's so much, context that I probably was missing with some of these songs, particularly the earlier ones. So any, Enya history majors, if there are any of you out there, like me, maybe I'm not so good at it, but Enya scholars, please help fill me in on some of those details for everyone else in the comments, and share your thoughts and your experiences with some of these songs, and what your favorites are and such. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it, also if you weren't aware of some of these songs, I highly recommend checking them out. I have in the description, I've listed the names of all the songs so you can look them up if you forget the titles, because these are all of these songs you can find on YouTube. There's just, like I said, only a couple of them you can actually purchase anymore. Though, maybe collectors out there have rare things, but anyway, like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new here. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed day. Peace, love, and light to you all.